T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Yeah, Chris, this shit's fun.
T9C got the fucking juice.
Silver's the new gold.
Yeah, Chris, this shit's fun.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of JT Sports Live. I'm your host, JT. We got a jam-packed episode tonight, man. The NFL continues to refuse to lower the prices for NFL Sunday ticket. They currently are battling a antitrust lawsuit. I got some thoughts on it. NFL owners also have had some conversations about finding a way to counteract all these massive quarterback contracts that are now starting to be signed. I got some interesting takeaways on that. The Miami Hurricanes and Oklahoma are being severely underrated going into this upcoming college football season. Meanwhile, you got people overhyping Florida State. Like, why do people think that FSU is this big juggernaut, like they're a Georgia or Alabama or somebody like that? FSU is not going to be that good this year. I'm going to be explaining to you guys why they're overhyped, We're also going to be talking about my big concerns with the New York Jets. Dave Canales, can he save Bryce Young? College football, the Heisman Trophy. I got my watch list for who could potentially win the award this year. And we got a lot of things to discuss, both NFL and college football, on this episode of JT Sports Live. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in to the chat. Before we begin, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're listening on X, like, retweet, give us a follow. And before we dive into it all, here's a quick word from our partner, Mint Mobile. Does it piss you off how much you pay for your monthly phone bill? Why are you getting frustrated when our partner Mint Mobile has plans as low as $15 a month that give you unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network? Stop getting frustrated with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and go to trymintmobile.com/JTsports and description and pin comment down below to get access to premium wireless for only $15 a month. That's only $15 a month. Switching to Mint is easy. It only takes 15 minutes to do. If you're pissed off with how much you pay for your monthly phone bill, switch to Mint Mobile today and go to trymintmobile.com/JTsports in description and pin comment down below to get premium wireless for only $15 a month. Stop getting upset with how much you spend on your monthly phone bill and switch to Mint Mobile today. All right, man, so we're going to lead off with this. The NFL is currently in court battling antitrust lawsuits surrounding their absurd price for NFL Sunday ticket. And I'm glad that somebody's finally handling these boys. Oh, my goodness. I can't talk today, people. My bad. Run it back. The NFL currently is in court fighting an antitrust lawsuit. I'm happy that people are finally holding these boys accountable for their absurd prices when it comes to the NFL Sunday ticket package, currently set at $449. And listen, I have no problem paying for Sunday ticket as long as they were to lower the price. You don't even got to lower the price. Just allow me to pay for this thing monthly, like $50 or $60, and you wouldn't have to worry about me illegally streaming the games. Why are you forcing me to have to watch local games with the Arizona Cardinals and the New York Giants? Like, no disrespect to those teams, but I have no interest in watching Danny Pennies and the damn Arizona Cardinals. Allow me to pick and choose the games that I want to watch. And the reason why the owners and Roger Goodell are fighting these lawsuits so heavy is because, first of all, their broadcast partners, Fox and CBS, they don't want these local games to lose ratings. So they pretty much want to force you to watch the games that are in your area. Now, ESPN last year, when the rights for Sunday ticket were up for grabs, they wanted to offer a $70 package. But the NFL said, hell no, we got to make that bank. And what's so ridiculous about this is the owners seem to be a little bit blinded by how much the overall price for a Sunday ticket is, instead of viewing it from a wider spectrum. Yeah, $70 is a lot less than $449, but more people are going to be willing to pay $70 for it, rather having to pay nearly $500 to watch any game you want, when you could just offer a team-specific package for way less, and you can still get way more money off that because you'll have more subscribers and less people illegally streaming the game from these websites than you would with you charging these insane fees for this package. I'm just so upset with the NFL continuing to be so greedy when it comes to how we have access to watch these games. The only way you can watch a game from the West Coast, if you live in the state of Florida like me, is by going on a website like Stream East or somebody like that. Other than that, you have to watch the games that get broadcasted to you locally. And when the Jaguars were bad before they got Trevor Lawrence, I hated watching Jacksonville, man. Every time the Jaguars came on, I was like, oh my goodness, they got no other games to watch on Fox? This is it. I either got to watch the Buccaneers or the Jaguars? Come on. Allow me to purchase Sunday ticket for a reasonable price. And you know this thing costs way too much when it's the only thing that you can't use your college discount for. When you're in college or you're a student, normally you're able to get a lot of benefits when it comes to membership, such as Apple Music or Amazon Prime for a discounted price. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, I looked up if they had any student discounts. None of them. Not until late in the season when they gave you $30 off when it was only a month left. The hell? I'm glad that the NFL is finally being held accountable for their crimes, taxing us these premium prices for something that really shouldn't be this high. The NFL is the only sports league that doesn't have team-specific packages if you just want to watch your team. Let's say I just want to watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play. You can't purchase that kind of package. And Jerry Jones recently spoke out against this. He slandered the Cincinnati Bengals, saying, all due respect to Cincinnati, but I can make way more money if I wanted to than them. Which I feel comes off hell of arrogant, because it's not about how much money you can make off one specific team. It's about allowing your consumers to have access to watch the teams that they want to watch. If I'm a Steelers fan and I live in Florida, I shouldn't have to go on these illegal streaming sites to watch my favorite team play. I should be able to turn on the TV, pick what game the Steelers play, and watch it. Not you forcing me to watch the games that are given to me based off my broadcasting area. That's just so wrong to me. So wrong. And thank God that Trevor Lawrence has been blessed to the city of Jacksonville, because if it wasn't for him, watching Jaguar games would be damn near unbearable. So the NFL is expected to lose this lawsuit. And when they do, they're going to have to pay anywhere between $7 to $21 billion in damages when this thing ends up getting settled. Now, it's not set in stone that the NFL is going to lose this game, but with what I read and the reports that are coming out, their chances of winning this thing definitely aren't high, and the NFL doesn't have a good win-loss record when it comes to them getting sued in court. Let's stay on the NFL. There's been discussions amongst the NFL owners about the idea of having a quarterback salary cap with the insane prices that these quarterbacks are asking for when it comes to their contract negotiations. We saw Trevor Lawrence get a boatload of money. Daniel Jones got a boatload of money, even though he didn't deserve it. The owners are trying to find a way to collude against these rising quarterback prices. And let's just call it what it is. It's collusion, because anytime you're coming together to figure out a way to counteract the rising quarterback market, you're finding ways to collude against these guys getting paid. And what's so stupid about this is, you want to know who's responsible for the absurd prices that these quarterbacks are asking for? It's these damn owners like Jerry Jones overpaying for a guy who can't deliver in the playoffs. The Miami Dolphins are about to overpay Tua, turning the ball over, who can't deliver in the playoffs neither. It's the owner's fault, because they keep overpaying these quarterbacks that are not as good as the salary that they're asking for. And what had me so annoyed is there are NFL fans that actually agree with this and feel a quarterback salary cap is a good idea. No, it's not. You keep saying that, oh, well, the quarterback makes so much money, JT. Nobody else can get paid. You know whose problem that is? It's the owner's problem. Maybe stop allocating 20% of your salary cap to a quarterback that's not good to make up for not having a good enough team around him to win. Do you really think it's a good idea if you're a Dolphins fan, for Miami to be giving Tua Tagovailoa a shitload of money? No, it's not. When you know he's not a quarterback that's good enough to elevate a team that has limitations. There's no need for a quarterback salary cap. How about we stop overpaying guys like Daniel Pennies, tell them to go kick rocks, let somebody else overpay for them in free agency, and we find another quarterback in the draft. But it's so hard to find a franchise quarterback. It's hard to find a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, but I don't think it's too hard to find an above average quarterback. Especially if you're in a situation like the Miami Dolphins and you have Tua throwing the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. If he's somebody that has to be elevated by good coaching and a good team around him, why not just go ahead, draft the rookie quarterback, put him in that same situation where you get him on a rookie deal that gives you more money to spend, and it allows you to have more salary cap flexibility like what you see with the 49ers, than continuing to overpay for quarterbacks that aren't good enough to win you a Super Bowl. That's the direction that the NFL needs to start heading towards. If you can't find a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl, then you shouldn't be paying them high-end quarterback money. We don't need a quarterback salary cap. These quarterback contracts are only high because these stupid owners keep overpaying for quarterbacks that are not that good to be getting the money that they're earning. We all knew the New York Giants made a terrible decision when they gave Daniel Jones that $40 million a year extension. And you can't tell me, oh, you gotta pay market value. Daniel Jones' market value was $40 million a year. Who the hell was going to pay him that in free agency? Nobody. What I would have did was the same thing that the Baltimore Ravens did when they were going back and forth with their contract negotiations with Lamar Jackson. I would have made him a restricted free agent or put a tender on him where he has the ability to hear offers out from other teams, and then you have the opportunity to match any offer with any said team if they do actually want your quarterback. That would have been a better option for the New York Giants instead of just overpaying for Daniel Jones and allowing Saquon Barkley to walk away for nothing and play for your arch nemesis, the Philadelphia Eagles. These owners are the biggest hypocrites. I really don't get why they just can't allow guys like Dak Prescott, Tua to walk instead of just overpaying for them, resetting the quarterback market. The Trevor Lawrence deal is a little outrageous, but I think in due time it's going to end up being a pretty good deal considering how much CJ Stroud is going to make, which he'll definitely deserve that money. But a guy like Tua, making just as much as Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence when he hasn't proven anything in the postseason. He sucked in big games last season for the Dolphins. What the hell are they doing paying him all that money? You know Tua isn't good enough to win you a Super Bowl, so why are you paying him like he is? That's the thing with these owners. They don't want to accept accountability. And for the people that think this is a good idea, I would tell you that it's a bad idea only because there's no need for it. In the NFL, it's more than just playing chess on the field. It's also a chess game off it because you have to maneuver the salary cap in a way that allows you to pay for a high-end quarterback as well as being able to afford other premium positions on your team. Even if you do allocate a salary cap for a quarterback and you put a limit on how much a quarterback can get paid, you're going to have to do that for all the other positions because edge rushers get paid a lot of money. Left tackles, if you got a Trent Williams kind of talent there, it's going to demand a lot of money. That's going to take a lot of salary cap space away from you. Same thing with these wide receivers. And that's not going to fly from the NFLPA because you can't put a limit on how much these players can get paid while you want to continue to extend the NFL regular season from 17 to 18 games. The more games you add, the more money you're going to make. You're making billions of dollars, and yet you want to put a cap on how much these athletes can make? If that's the case, how about you just stop making extra money and keep things the way they are, or stop raising the salary cap? All you're doing is further making a problem that's already bad even worse by putting a salary cap restriction on the quarterbacks, because you're going to have to do that for every other position. Part of the NFL is being able to maneuver the cap in a way that still allows you to have a winning team despite how much you're paying your quarterback. If you have a good quarterback that's making a lot of money, that means that he can do more with less, which shows you why Kansas City just won the Super Bowl this past year with Patrick Mahomes, despite him having no elite receivers on that team. The only receiver you can name on that roster is Rashee Rice. That's about it. We all know about Travis Kelce. Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce are the only players that you can name off Kansas City's wide receiving core. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, can you even spell that? When you have a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, premium quarterbacks like that deserve high-end money because they can do more with less. Even Trevor Lawrence to a certain extent. Justin Herbert, they can do more with less. Tua can't, which is why he shouldn't be paid top-end quarterback money. Who cares about you got to give him market value? Is Tua a market value franchise quarterback? No, the hell he's not. He's a very good quarterback, but not somebody that you give $250 million to. These NFL owners, instead of taking accountability for the dumb contracts that they're giving some of these mid-level quarterbacks, they want to run away from it, and they just want to try to find a way to cap the pay, which is a bad business decision because the players are not going to fall in line with that. It's not fair to them that just because these quarterbacks make so much, you got to limit how much they're going to make, because if you put a cap restriction on the quarterbacks, you got to do that for every other position. And these players want to get as much money as possible. And if the salary cap is going to rise every year and the amount of revenue that the NFL is making rises every single season, the players are only going to get more because they get a big slice of that pie. They are the ones who are responsible for this league being what it is today. We seem to forget this. If it wasn't for the players, there wouldn't be any of this, which is why you can't put a limit on how much they can make. Shout out to everybody in the chat. My guy M Sparks says shout out to you. He says Tua is fragile. He would get injured ordering a pizza. Kate Roan, shout out to him. He says Tua got too much brain scramblies too. Sophisticated Degenerate says, sup fam, go Knowles, Duval. My guy Vosco says UNC rec prediction. We got a North Carolina rec prediction coming on later this offseason, man. I promise you, I'm gonna get my rec predictions out for every single team. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on YouTube, if you're listening on X, like, retweet this live stream. Remember that we're not just the YouTube channel. You can find this episode and all our previous episodes in audio format on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Make sure to follow us on our social media pages. You can find us on X at JT Sports __ and on Instagram at JT Sports _. Now, before we move on, I got to get me a sip of water from the gallon. Now, next up, later on in this episode, I'm going to be giving you guys my NFL divisions realign. Okay, I'm going to be realigning all the NFL divisions. It's been a while since the NFL last had division realignment. The last one took place back in 2002, and I was just bored a few nights ago, and I was just thinking to myself, man, it would be fun with college football having all the conference realignment going on, for me to go ahead and do something similar, when it comes to realigning the NFL division. So we have that on deck later on in the show. Also going to be giving you guys my Heisman watch list, 10 players that have the best chance to win a Heisman Trophy this upcoming college football season. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Let's transition to college football. Florida State is the most overrated team going into the 2024 college football season, man. This team is far from a lock to make it into the playoffs this year. They're currently favorites to win the ACC over Clemson and Miami, and I just don't see it with Florida State this year. Are they going to be a trash team? No, they're not. I think they're going to be good enough to win 8-9 games, but I definitely can see them losing 3 games this year. First of all, you have DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback. And after what I saw from him in the spring game, he has not improved. He's looked like the same quarterback we've seen when he was at Clemson and when he was at Oregon State last year. He has inconsistent accuracy. He doesn't make good decisions with the football. He's a really good athlete, has a really strong arm, but DJ Uiagalelei is not a playoff caliber quarterback. And there's going to be a lot of close games that Florida State's going to find themselves in. And they're most likely going to lose those games because DJU just isn't that dependable as a quarterback. Plus, you got a really questionable wide receiving core. You lose Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman to the NFL draft. Yeah, you have some talent there, but you don't have a lot of proven talent. You don't have a lot of proven production coming back at wideout. You brought in some talented guys from the portal, but from what we saw in the spring game, those guys struggled to separate. They were dropping passes. I have a homie that goes to Florida State who went to a couple of Florida State practices, and he said that, that offense ain't looking that good this year. Florida State is going to heavily rely on the run game this year, and they don't have a tough schedule. Their toughest games this year, you play SMU on the road, Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame on the road. I can see them losing to both Miami and Notre Dame in those road games. And SMU is a game that potentially could be an upset. Clemson at home, that's winnable, but I think it's fair to see Florida State losing at least 3 games this year. I don't see this being a college football playoff contender. DJU has shown us time in and time out that he's not that good of a quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a great one either. If you were to ask me to rank my top 10 quarterbacks in college football this year, DJ Uiagalelei would not be on that list. Listen, Jordan Travis is one of the best quarterbacks in Florida State history. Going from him to DJ Uiagalelei is a massive drop-off. At Oregon State, there were games that they lost because he wasn't a consistent passer, especially in the fourth quarter. He's a really good athlete. He'll make some things happen with the ball in his hands on the ground, but this dude isn't it. And he's going to be the sole reason why Florida State doesn't end up being as good as what people think they will be. Clemson's quarterback, Cade Klubnik, he's not that good neither, but he's more dependable than DJ Uiagalelei. Hell, he ended up being the reason why DJU had to transfer from Clemson because he took his job. Cam Ward is one of the best quarterbacks in college football going into this year. He's way better than DJU. Hell, Preston Stone, the quarterback for SMU, he's better than DJU. DJU is a top 20 quarterback. People look at the numbers and they say he's very good. But if you watch the games, you know that he's the same quarterback now that he was at Oregon State and that he was at Clemson. Is he going to win you a few games? Yes, but he's also going to cost you a couple of games as well because he's just not that consistent as a passer. Florida State had a few guys out in the spring game, and the spring games are always weird because they have the roster shuffled. You got backups playing certain positions on the offensive line, and then you'll have some starters playing certain positions on the other side for the other team on the O-line, and you'll just have the first stringers mixed in with backups. It's just really hard to evaluate somebody from a spring game completely. I understand that. But I've seen enough out of DJU to know that the version of him that we saw in the spring game for the Noles is the same version that we're going to get come this season. Why? Because we've seen it from him the last decade he's been in college football. And I know he hasn't been playing that long, but it freaking feels like it. When is he finally going to go on to the next level? Because he's been playing college ball for a while. You definitely have to suspect that this has to be close to the end when it comes to his collegiate career. And he definitely is squeezing all the juice that he can out of that thing because he's not an NFL level quarterback. He's an above average college quarterback. He reminds me a lot of what Miami had a few years back in Malik Rozier. He has a strong arm. He'll make a couple of big throws every once in a while, but he's not a consistent passer. Mike Norvell has a really good coaching staff. He did a really good job of developing Jordan Travis, but DJU, for him only being there for a few months, he's not going to improve that drastically where all of a sudden he just looks like an all-world quarterback. Jordan Travis spent years in that Seminole system. He had years to be developed and to be coached up. DJU, at this point, he is what he is. That defense is going to be really good, and you better hope that that defense is just as good as what it was last year because you're going to need it to be. They have to make up for all the costly mistakes that DJU is going to cost you and the inconsistencies that you're going to have on offense with him being at quarterback. Your running back position is absolutely fantastic. Nobody does a better job at getting more out of their running backs than what Florida State does. They're one of the best schools in the nation when it comes to having high productive running back play. But your wide receiving core is severely lacking. That's not just me being biased. I'm not an FSU hater. There's FSU fans who I've been talking to on Spaces saying that, yeah, JT, all wide receiver position, we're not that confident into this season. Florida State is massively overhyped. I don't think they're a better team than what Clemson is this year, nor Miami. This is the best Miami team that they've had on paper since 2004, 2002. And I know it seems like we say that every single season, but this truly should be the year that Miami makes a legit run to win their first ever ACC title. And I believe that they beat Florida State in the process of doing that because they got a better quarterback. And I don't think that the coaching is going to be that big of Achilles heel this year. When you look at Mario Cristobal's track record, his third year is when he normally puts it all together and his teams have big years. I'm willing to bet money that Florida State does not win the ACC this year. Is this a weak conference? Yes, but I don't think they're going to be in the mix to win it because I don't see them beating Clemson nor Miami with DJU at quarterback. Dabo Swinney and those boys probably going to be laughing when they see DJU back up there making the same mistakes that forced Clemson to have to bench him for Cade Klubnik. I don't see it with the Florida State hype this year. I think that people are living in the recency bias when it comes to the Noles because they got screwed out of making it to the playoffs last year. We get that. But they haven't recruited at a level to make you believe that they're just simply going to relock and reload this year. They don't recruit at a level of Alabama or Georgia. And their last couple of recruiting classes have been decent, but they haven't been good enough where they have guys who are going to just step in for Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson and whoever else, and they're just going to produce at a level just as high as what they did. It's going to take at least a year or two for them to get back to that playoff caliber level. So Florida State, to me, is getting way too much hype this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up having at least 3 losses this year. Something is really off with the New York Jets, man. I got some really big concerns with these boys, and don't call me a hater because a few weeks ago I picked them to win the AFC East. I am taking that prediction back. Listen, I'm not trying to sound like an echo chamber from everybody in the national media when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, but I thought when he was missing mandatory minicamp, I thought it was due to a family-related issue. Maybe he had a friend that was getting married or something like that. Let's just be honest. He missed mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. And I don't have anything against how people like to indulge in their free time, because y'all done see me plenty of times come on here high as a kite. So trust me, I have nothing wrong with people indulging in the drugs that they like to indulge in. But when it comes into the middle of your job, then it kind of becomes a problem. And I don't care if he was at OTAs. That's not the point. The point is, the dude missed mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. This is the Aaron Rodgers experience. This is why the Green Bay Packers traded him away. This is why they roll with Jordan Love, because they got tired of his BS. Part of being a championship football team is having everybody on the same page. One team, one goal. Does it really sound like Aaron Rodgers is on the same page with everybody else? Or is he just using his power that he has within the organization? Because at this point, Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, they need to just go ahead and get them some Aaron Rodgers jerseys, some pom-poms, get some knee pads, and, zip it up when they're done when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. Because if this was any other team, you think the Pittsburgh Steelers would allow something like this? You think Mike Tomlin would be down to allow Aaron Rodgers to do something like this? Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, the greatest head coaches that ever called this sport or coached this sport, would not allow Aaron Rodgers to be running all over them like how Robert Saleh is when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. I love Aaron Rodgers. I still think he can be a very good quarterback, but he has way too much control within this organization. This is embarrassment for the New York Jets. And don't tell me that you're blowing this out of proportion. The dude missed mandatory minicamp because he had some personal things that he couldn't miss. He already told them ahead of time. It doesn't excuse him from the fact that he's missing mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. How can you defend this, man? And if that's not bad enough, you got Hassan Reddick, who you traded for, who has yet to even talk to anybody within the organization yet. He's 30 years old with a cap hit of $14.5 million. You could have just re-signed Bryce Huff for the same deal that he just got with the Philadelphia Eagles for a way cheaper price, a way smaller cap hit, and you would have had a younger player that has just as much as the same upside as what Hassan Reddick has. Another concern that I have with the New York Jets, outside of Aaron Rodgers and, the weirdness that he has going on with the power control that he has within this organization, is the fact that they are relying on a bunch of old, injury-prone players to be productive for them. Mike Williams, injury-prone. He's coming off an ACL injury. He got banged up near the tail end of 2022. Tyron Smith, when he's healthy, he's still one of the best offensive tackles in the game. Key word, when he's healthy. Do you know how long it's been since Tyron Smith has played a full season? It's been 9 years. The last time he played every game in the regular season, it was 2015. I was in 7th grade that year. The New York Jets, something just feels really weird with this team, man. And I want to believe that they're good enough to win this division. I want to believe that they could win it all this season. They got the team to do so, but it's just the locker room dynamic. It's just really off-putting to me. It's not about how much talent you have on the team. It's about, can you coach that team properly? And can everybody play with the same goals in mind? I don't see that. I still see Aaron Rodgers' ego getting in the way of things. And I'm not an Aaron Rodgers hater. So don't lump me in with the Colin Cowherds and the Nick Wrights of the world. I want Aaron Rodgers to win. He's the last OG quarterback of my generation. I'm going to feel so old when Aaron Rodgers finally decides to hang it up. But let's not act like this isn't a weird situation. This just seems like one of those things that just seems too good to be true. And the New York Jets have been having this same cycle going on for over the last decade. It's been nothing but a circus with them. You can't say this is getting blown out of proportion when you have a guy that's missing mandatory minicamp. You have to show up to this or you get fined. You might as well have just went ahead and missed some of the voluntary OTA workouts and then showed up for minicamp. I don't care if, he alerted them ahead of time. The point is that Patrick Mahomes isn't doing this. Tom Brady didn't do this. This is why Aaron Rodgers is where he is at this stage of his career. This is why when you talk about Aaron Rodgers, one of the most talented, if not the most talented quarterback in NFL history, why he only has one Super Bowl ring on his finger because of shit like this. This is another instance of Aaron Rodgers being Aaron Rodgers. And the New York Jets have no choice but to get on their knees and to put those knee pads on and get those Aaron Rodgers pom-poms to say, yeah, Aaron, you can do whatever you want to because you're Aaron Rodgers. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers play at an MVP level in 2 going on 3 years. He's 40 years old. Somebody had the audacity to tell me that the Jets were going to be a better team than the Cincinnati Bengals. Are you kidding me? I don't see Joe Burrow doing this. Do you see Patrick Mahomes doing this? This is why Green Bay made the right decision to move on from Aaron Rodgers, because this dude just does so many random things at the most random times. Why are you choosing to take a retreat during minicamp? And minicamp is only 3 to 4 days long. You mean to tell me that you couldn't wait to get high a few days later? You had to do it now? Let's be honest, the dude missed mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. I don't care how you New York Jets fans try to spin it. I know it isn't officially reported, but let's just be honest, man. That's what Aaron Rodgers went to go do, because this isn't the first time he's done something like this. And I have no problem with people indulging in what they want to indulge in, because I indulge myself. But when it's time to go to work, you can't let that get in the way of you missing valuable time to develop chemistry with your teammates. Aaron Rodgers didn't even throw a pass last season, did he? So he still has a lot of time that he could be using to continue to build a good rapport, good timing, and good chemistry with his wide receivers and his offensive line. You can't tell me he was at OTAs. No, he needs to be at every single practice, because every rep counts. The New York Jets are banking on Aaron Rodgers to be good this year, because if he's not, a lot of people are about to be asked out. There's too many people depending on this dude. If I'm Robert Saleh, I'm saying, no, you need to be at mandatory minicamp, my guy. I don't care if we fine you. If you don't play good this year, I'm out of a job. Joe Douglas is out of a job. Your dude, Nathaniel Hackett, is out of a job. And the New York Jets are right back at the chopping block again, starting over. People really defend this, man. Really defend this. This is not something that I expect out of a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is not serious, man. He's not. And I love Aaron Rodgers. I don't have anything wrong with what he says, what he does, as long as he puts in the necessary time to make sure that this team is successful. And that should be every practice he should be showing up. Not taking days off to go do drugs. Because that's essentially what he did. Man, I wanna believe that the New York Jets can win it this year, but I just can't, man. I can't, man. It's like every time the days pass with the New York Jets, they give you something else They give you just another reason why you shouldn't believe in them. This man missed out. I'm thinking that he missed out on mandatory minicamp because he had some family issues going on, or he had a friend getting married, or it was something very important. No, this man Aaron Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp to go do drugs. You cannot make this up, man. You can't make this up. Before we move on, if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. You can find the audio version of this live stream and all our previous episodes in audio format on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. Follow us on X at JT Sports __ on Instagram at JT Sports _. Shout out to all my guys in the chat. Shout out to Here We Go Show. We got a collab coming really soon. Make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to my guy Here We Go Show, man. Really good Pittsburgh Steelers content creator. Shout out to my guy M Sparks. He says, just say no, Aaron. Shout out to my guy Kate Roan. He says, Bryce Young looks like he's ready to whip some dudes up. He was just damn impressive the way he got it back up every snap, knowing he was getting his ass kicked way tougher than I gave him credit for. Yeah, man, that boy Bryce Young definitely hung in there. And speaking of Bryce Young, you know, we're going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers later on in this episode. Will Dave Canales be able to save Bryce Young's career? Can he help Bryce Young turn around? But before we get into that, we got to talk about the SEC's biggest sleeper team going into this season. I cannot believe more people are not talking about I cannot believe that more people are not talking about Oklahoma football this year, man. This is going to be one of the better teams in the SEC this year, and I see them being way better than a 7-5, 8-4 football team. The Sooners have the capability of being able to make it to Atlanta. They got one of the best defenses coming into this season in this conference. They were third in takeaways last year in 2023. They got a loaded secondary with guys like safety Billy Bowman, who was second in the nation in interceptions last year. You got tons of experience and depth in that secondary. You also are going to have a really good front seven led by linebacker Danny Stutzman, who was all-world last year, had over 100 tackles, had a couple of sacks, a few interceptions as well. He's just a playmaker. Plus, you improve your defensive line and your pass rush, and this offense is loaded. They got a really good group of wide receivers. They got a running back that I love named Gavin Sawchuk. This Gavin Sawchuk dude, he was going off near the tail end of last year, man. I don't know why he wasn't on the field earlier. People said that he got held back due to injuries, but when they started calling Gavin Sawchuk's names, that man was making a killing. He was going off against Arizona in the Alamo Bowl. I had a bet against Oklahoma. I had picked Arizona to win that game outright. And my homie did too. He was saying, JT, you think that Arizona's going to be able to hold on? I was like, man, as long as Oklahoma don't keep giving it to this Gavin Sawchuk dude, they're going to be fine. Oklahoma has a really good defense, a really good group of skill position players. The offensive line is going to be good. What's going to make or break this team and determine how far they go this year all hinges on how well Jackson Arnold plays this year. If he plays as good as what we expect him to, being a highly sought after recruit coming out of high school, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. From his recruiting cycle, he was the Gatorade Player of the Year. If he ends up panning out, Oklahoma definitely could be in the running to win this conference. They probably are one of the most complete teams entering this season. They don't really have too many areas of weakness outside of, the concerns that you're probably going to have about how good your new offensive coordinator is going to be with Jeff Lebby opting to leave and take the head coaching gig down at Mississippi State. If Jackson Arnold and that new offensive coordinator mesh together, Oklahoma is a really scary team. I'm really surprised that not too many people think that they're going to be any more than an 8-win team at best. Brent Venables and his staff have done a really good job at recruiting and developing talent. They also do a really good job at getting really good pieces out of the transfer portal. I'm really high on Oklahoma this year. The SEC, with how oversaturated this conference is going to be due to conference realignment, it's hard to find too many true sleepers in this conference, but Oklahoma definitely fits the build. This is a team that last year won 10 games, year 2 under Brent Venables. He's going into his 3rd season, and there's no reason to expect a huge regression just because they are having a leg up in competition. Oklahoma is built to sustain success in the SEC. To be able to win in this conference, you have to be able to recruit, and they've shown that. This is going to be the first year that Brent Venables is actually going to have the ability to run his kind of defense. Aggressive, fast, physical. This is going to be the same defense this season at Oklahoma that we've seen out of Brent Venables all those years when he was the D coordinator down there under Dabo Swinney at Clemson. Their schedule is pretty tough, but they're good enough to win the majority of these games. Tennessee at home, that's winnable. You should take care of Auburn on the road. You got Texas at home, that's winnable. Anytime you have the luxury of playing a team in Norman, that's a winnable game, regardless how good the opponent is, because Oklahoma has been recruiting at a top 10 level ever since Brent Venables got down there to Norman. Your toughest games are on the road. Ole Miss, Mizzou, LSU. Those are the 3 toughest road games that you have, and I could see you winning 2 of those games. Missouri, they're going to be in for a down season. I think too many people are riding off the high that they had last year. LSU, they're not going to have a defense this year. Their defense is going to be better, but I don't think it's going to be good enough for them to be a playoff team this year. I definitely see a scenario where, at worst, the floor for Oklahoma is 9-3. But the ceiling for this team, I could see it being 11 wins, but realistically, I see them being a 10-9 win football team, which could be good enough for them to sneak into the postseason, depending on, where these wins come from. The SEC is so stacked that you can still get in as a 3-loss team as long as you have some quality wins against quality opponents, and that's what Oklahoma has this year. They're going to have a great defense. Their offense should be really good. You got to remember that they were confident enough to name Jackson Arnold the guy and allow Dylan Gabriel to walk. And Dylan Gabriel is one of the best quarterbacks in college football going into this season. He's a veteran. He's been around the block. So that shows a lot about how they feel about Jackson Arnold. I don't think it's wise to be sleeping on Oklahoma football this season. This is definitely a team that I expect to surprise a lot of people this year. They aren't getting talked about enough. And there are too many people that when they do talk about Oklahoma, they are severely underestimating the capability of this team. We know that last year, Bryce Young had an awful rookie season. He was set up to fail. He didn't have good coaching. He had a bad supporting cast. We all know the story. It's time to put his rookie season away, and it's time to look forward to what's next, which is year 2 under Dave Canales. And I got a lot of confidence that we're going to see a way different version of Bryce Young in 2024 compared to what we saw in 2023. This is going to be the arrival of King Bryce. Dave Canales, he helped Geno Smith go from a bench warmer to a solid starter. And we saw how Geno Smith regressed and his play fell off when Dave Canales left Seattle to take the offensive coordinator job for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, his first year being the OC for Tampa Bay, he helped Baker resurrect his career after being tossed around the league like a hot potato. From the Browns to the Panthers to the Rams, then the Bucks. He made Baker Mayfield look like one of the better quarterbacks in the league last year. And I definitely expect Baker Mayfield's play to dwindle a little bit with Dave Canales leaving for Carolina. This was a really good hire. Was this somebody who got a lot of head coaching interviews? No, it wasn't. But Mike McDaniel with the Miami Dolphins, he didn't get a lot of head coaching interviews neither. When you have somebody that has the track record that Dave Canales has, resurrecting guys like Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith that were cast to the side, nobody thought that they could become halfway decent starters in the league. This shows you how good of an offensive mind he is. And you give him Bryce Young, there's a reason why Bryce went first overall. Really good accuracy. He plays way better than what his size shows. He plays a lot bigger than that 5'10", 190 soaking wet frame. At Alabama, he was the best quarterback that Nick Saban ever had. He carried those Alabama teams the 2 years that he was the starter there. They didn't really have too much NFL talent his final season down there. The only first rounder he played with his last year at Bama was Jahmyr Gibbs. Last year, he had probably the worst wide receiving core in the league. Anytime old man, grandpa Adam Thielen is leading your team and receiving yards and receptions, there's a problem. So what did you do this offseason to help out Bryce? You trade for Deontay Johnson, which as a Steelers fan, I'll tell you that was a really good pickup. He's one of the more underrated wide receivers in the league. He's going to be what the Carolina Panthers have needed at wide receiver for the last couple of years. Somebody that can get open, create good separation. He has potential to be a very good number one target for Bryce Young this year. Xavier Legette, you drafted him in the first round this past year's draft. He was a top 7 wide receiver on my board. He could have a really good rookie season. You look at how athletic he is, how much athleticism he has, especially when it comes to being able to run guys over after the catch. He also has the ability to go up and win those 50-50 balls downfield. You get Jonathan Brooks, Jatavion Sanders. You improve the interior of your offensive line. This is going to be a way better team that we see out of Carolina this season. And I don't expect this to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. Dave Canales, he may be inexperienced as a head coach, but we know when it comes to getting the most out of his quarterbacks, he's able to maximize that position. We've seen it with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield. That's his resume, and that's a damn good rap sheet to have. Only 1 year being the OC, you take Baker Mayfield from being a misfit, a cast-off who nobody thought had anything left in the tank, to end up having a Pro Bowl caliber season. That's impressive. I believe in Dave Canales, and I expect Bryce Young to have a bounce back year in 2024. Although some wouldn't call it a bounce back year, but I thought that Bryce Young would have been way better than what he showed us last season. But that coaching staff didn't do him no favors. They were calling the same plays. The run game wasn't there. He now has no more excuses this year. This is the year that Bryce Young has to come out and he needs to show us why he was drafted number 1 overall. Is he ever going to be better than CJ Stroud? Most likely not. But that doesn't mean that he still can't be a solid winning quarterback. I see Bryce Young's career turning out a lot similarly to how Tua Tagovailoa's career panned out once they moved on from Brian Flores and they got Mike McDaniels there. What Dave Canales is going to do to set Bryce Young up for success is that he's going to play more to Bryce's strengths. Bryce isn't one of those quarterbacks that's going to be throwing 50-yard, 60-yard dimes downfield. He's a quarterback that's going to be a good point guard for you. He's going to get the ball out fast. He's going to be really accurate throwing the football from the short, intermediate areas of the field. He's going to throw with good anticipation, good timing. He is really good when it comes to reading defenses. And there were times when we saw that out of Bryce Young. He does have enough arm strength to make the majority of throws needed, especially in tight windows against man-to-man coverage. Dave Canales is known for running a quarterback-friendly offense. There's not a lot of plays. There's just a lot of formations, but with similar plays to make things more understandable. He runs an offense that's easy for his players to learn. And I could see Bryce Young having a really good season year or 2 under Dave Canales. Now, is this going to be a playoff team with how their schedule looks? Probably not. They are going to have to beat a couple of good teams if they want to get into the postseason, but you talk about a team that only won a handful of games last year. I could see them going from a 2-win team 3-win team to possibly a 7-win, maybe 8-win team in 2024. This division isn't that tough. Bryce Young, if he ends up having a better season than what he had last year, and he actually shows a lot of flash. Remember Trevor Lawrence? Once they got rid of Urban Meyer, year or two, he ended up popping off under Doug Peterson, and we end up seeing Bryce Young play at least a top 12 level. He's going to be better than nearly every quarterback in the NFC South. Kirk Cousins, he's decent, but we don't know how he's going to look coming off that Achilles injury. Derek Carr is starting to regress. He's starting to fall off. Baker Mayfield, with him losing Dave Canales, going to Liam Cohen. I don't see Tampa Bay making it back to the playoffs this year. I just don't see Baker Mayfield as a long-term starting quarterback in this league. I could see a situation where Bryce Young possibly becomes the second or best quarterback in the NFC South this year under Dave Canales. That's how good I think Dave Canales is going to be as the head coach for Carolina, at least when it comes to maximizing the most of Bryce's skill set. I'll be extremely surprised if Bryce Young doesn't end up panning out for the Carolina Panthers. Shout out to everybody in the chat. My guy M Spark says, not sure if Prince Young has enough talent around him. He may have a few years. Maybe he can. Losing Johnson was a butt piece, but he was a head case. I don't think Deontay Johnson was that big as an issue as what Steelers fans make him out to be. Every wide receiver is going to get frustrated when you got bad quarterback play. I didn't see Deontay Johnson being frustrated when Mason Rudolph was throwing passes. I'm just saying, when you got good quarterback play, wide receivers don't end up getting upset. And Deontay Johnson, so far in Carolina, he's been a model citizen, hasn't had any incidents. He isn't looking for a new contract. He's trying to prove himself. And the Steelers still don't have a good replacement for Deontay Johnson. They're still banking on trying to get Brandon Ayuk. So, I think Deontay Johnson is going to be a huge addition to the Carolina Panthers roster this year. I expect him to have a really big season. I could see him going for over 1,000 yards and probably having 80, 90 catches. He's that good. He's one of the best separators, one of the best pure route runners in the game. When you can get open, 9 times out of 10, you end up being a very good, very productive wide receiver. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening in audio format, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, wherever you may be listening at. We'll greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the start of this season, and we also are trying to crack the top 200 of the sports Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts as well. So if you support the channel, go ahead, give us a 5-star review. All you got to do is type in the JT Sports Podcast on any platform and it will pop up. Or you can go down to the description down below and the links will be there for the Apple and Spotify versions of the podcast. Okay. I love how everybody's sleeping on the Miami Hurricanes this season. I saw On3 post a graphic on the socials a few days ago. They was like, over under 9.5 wins for the Hurricanes. I go to the comment section, everybody's like, man, Miami is always the safe bet to bet the under on. Okay, bet the under on Miami this year if you want to, and you're going to lose a lot of money, because I'm trying to tell you folks that if there was ever a year for the Miami Hurricanes to live up to the high expectations, it is 2024. If you ain't sipping that orange and green Kool-Aid, you need to go ahead and get you some, because Miami's going to win the ACC championship this year. You get Cam Ward, the best quarterback out of the transfer portal. He's going to win, people. He is going to produce at a high level. When you look at the talent he's going to have around him, you're going to have a stacked wide receiving core, tons of talent, a lot of experience. You got Damian Martinez at running back. He was the second-ranked running back out of the portal. You got a really good offensive line. This offense is going to cook everybody. I've seen people say that they could struggle week 1 against Florida because Cam Ward is going to be learning a new system, getting acclimated to new teammates. That's BS. This is the same system Shannon Dawson that he runs that Cam Ward has been in for his last couple of stops. Even that incarnate word, whatever they call that university he was at before he went to Washington State, they ran the air raid system. Washington State ran an air raid system. There is not too many differences in the system that Shannon Dawson is running compared to what Cam Ward has played in his last couple of years playing college football. Defensively, you went heavy when it came to adding talent to the interior of the defensive line. You got a lot of good pass rushers, a lot of talent up front. This is going to be the best team that the Miami Hurricanes have had in a very long time. They don't have a tough schedule. Florida State isn't going to be as good as what people are hyping them up to be. Their 4 biggest games this year, week 1 on the road against Florida, you should win that one. You can say that Mario Cristobal isn't that good of a coach, but when you look at everywhere Mario Cristobal has been, his 3rd season is normally when his teams start to hit their stride. And not just that, but he has a really good coaching staff. You also are going up against a Florida team that right now, they're in a little bit of disarray. We don't know how good Billy Napier is. All we know is that Billy Napier hasn't proven the amount that Mario Cristobal has proven. Being able to win a conference title, being able to be a high-level recruiter, and being able to get guys into the NFL, being former first-round picks. Penei Sewell, Justin Herbert, all were first-rounders under Mario Cristobal's tutelage. Billy Napier, he isn't a good play caller. He's still calling the plays. His clock management is just as bad, if not worse, than what Mario Cristobal's is. It doesn't matter if Miami's playing in the swamp. They're used to the Florida heat. They're not too far away from Gainesville. It gets hot as hell down in South Florida too. Florida is not going to be a good team this year. Miami is not going to lose to Florida this year. I don't care if we said the same thing in 2019. You see, this is your problem. You see, what your problem is that you keep judging this year's Miami team based off previous year's Miami's team. And football isn't determined by history. It's determined by the team you have this year and what you have going into this season. Nobody gives a damn about what happened 10 decades ago. Nobody cares if Miami has consistently disappointed year in and year out. They said the same thing about Texas last year, and look what happened. They went to the playoffs. You said the same thing about Florida State last year, and look what happened. They got robbed of making it to the playoffs. You can't judge a team based off history. Miami is good enough to make it to the playoffs and potentially win a postseason game or two. This is a really good team with a really good roster, and they are easily the most talented team in the ACC going into this season. I'm really surprised that Miami has the 3rd best odds to win this conference behind Clemson and Florida State, when Florida State is replacing a lot of talent that they lost to the portal and to the NFL with a downgrade at quarterback, question marks at wide receiver. Clemson has a little bit of a question mark at quarterback themselves. We don't know how good their offense is going to be. There's way more reasons to be confident about Miami this year than there are when it comes to Florida State and Clemson. I get that Miami has to show it on the field this year, but I believe they will. They don't play too many tough games. Florida on the road is a win. Virginia Tech at home, that's a game that could be a tough one, but I could see Miami getting the win in that one. On the road against Jeff Brom in the upset master against Louisville, that's going to be tough. Then, of course, you got to play Florida State, but the ceiling for Miami is easily 12-0. But the floor for Miami is incredibly high. I don't see this being no more than a 2-loss team this year. That's how good Miami is. And if you're betting the under at 9.5 for Miami, I think you're making an incredibly huge mistake. You can't judge a team based off history, because the games are not won and lost by what you've done in the past. It's based on the now, the present. Too many people make the mistake of living in recency bias. And if you're betting money, your hard-earned money that you work for, you would think that you would be a little bit smarter with how you spend your money. Because if you're spending your money just saying, oh yeah, I'm just going to bet the under with Miami because they always underachieve, that's stupid logic. That's short bus logic. Because everybody knows that you don't get the same team every single year. There's always a year where people can surprise you. Based off that logic, if you bet the under on Texas last year, you look like a fool. Same thing if you bet the under on Mizzou and FSU. There are always teams in college football that come out of nowhere that turn it around. Making the mistake of not drinking the Miami Hurricanes Kool-Aid this year is a huge, huge mistake, and you're going to lose yourself a lot of money doing it this year. I already got money on Miami winning the ACC this year with a lot of folks on those Twitter spaces. A lot of FSU fans are really confident that DJ Uyunglele is going to be able to get them win against Miami. I don't see that happening. Miami's going to win the ACC this year, man. I'm going to continue to stamp it. I'm going to continue to say it all offseason because it's going to happen this year. This is the year that the Miami Hurricanes finally live up to the hype. Now, a few nights ago, I was bored and I was thinking about conference realignment in college football, and that had me thinking, what would NFL divisional realignment look like? What if somebody was to realign all of the NFL's divisions? So I went ahead and I realigned all of the divisions in the National Football League, and this is how I feel realignment will go, at least in my opinion, how I will realign these conferences. The new AFC East will still have the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets, but you have the New York Giants in there only because it makes sense. They pretty much play in the same location. Why not just throw the New York Giants into the same division as the Jets? Plus, would this not be one of the biggest must-see matchups in the league, at least when it comes to rivalries? You'll have the Battle of New York, Giants versus Jets. Then you got the New England Patriots. You still got to have the Patriots in this division only because, Foxborough isn't too far away from where all these other teams play, and I would call this the cold weather division. This is the division home to all the cold weather teams that are playing in the snow, freezing temperatures. So this is how the AFC East will look in terms of how I would do the realignment. You got the Bills, the Jets still, but the new team that you add to this division is the New York Giants. That would spice things up. I would love to watch the New York Jets battle the New York Giants. It's the battle of mid, or the battle of mediocrity and disappointment for the king or for the key to New York. The AFC North, you still will have the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I would add the Philadelphia Eagles. Y'all don't know about the Steelers rivalry. Yeah, there was a time when at one point the Steelers and the Eagles were one team. They both play in the same state of Pennsylvania. They aren't too far away from each other. Having Philadelphia in the AFC North, it fits what this division has been. Toughness, physicality. When you think of Philadelphia, they always have good interior offensive line and defensive line play. They would fit right in with this division. The Washington Commanders, they joined this division as well because they don't play too far away from the rest of these teams. And I think that them and Baltimore potentially could be a really good rivalry. So this is how I think a new AFC North would look like if we were to realign the divisions. The new AFC South, would it not make any sense to put all of the Florida teams in one division? You got the Dolphins, the Buccaneers, the Jaguars. We need to see these teams play a lot more. This would be the division that determines who truly is the best team in the NFL when it comes to the state of Florida. Who owns the Sunshine State? And then the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta is only a 6-hour drive away from Jacksonville. And, they're a little bit of a distance away from Tampa and Miami, but it's still not that long. Atlanta, with them playing in Georgia, and you got the Jags and the Dolphins and the Bucks there, they would be a perfect fit in the AFC South. You move them away from the NFC South, and you basically have a division with all the Florida teams plus Georgia. All these teams are pretty much in the same radius of each other. Next, the AFC West. You got Seattle joining the party. Seattle playing in the NFC West is that you could say that maybe they should stay in the NFC West, but moving them to the AFC West makes a lot more sense because they play in Seattle, Washington, which is way up there on the left corner of the United States. You know, you have them playing teams that are in the Mountain or the West Coast time zone still. You know, Las Vegas, the Broncos, you still got the Chargers there. So there's still the potential for some really good matchups in this division, although Seattle would be the only team as of right now that you could say has had the most success and the most consistency out of these other three teams that they're in this division with. But this could be a really good division if you think about what the Chargers have at head coach now and Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert is still one of the best quarterbacks in the game. The Raiders, if they could ever get quarterback right, they could be really competitive. And the Denver Broncos, I think Sean Payton's going to have it figured out with Bo Nix at quarterback this year. So I would love to see Seattle joining the AFC West. Now, of course, you would replace them with Kansas City, but we need some new blood in the AFC West anyway outside of Kansas City because they've been winning this division way too easily. They've been winning this division damn near every single season ever since Andy Reid first got hired by Kansas City. So it's time we kick Kansas City out of this division and give somebody else a chance to win it. And maybe this division will be a little bit more watchable. Now moving on to the NFC. My new NFC East with NFL division realignment. You got the Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, Kansas City Chiefs, and the Cincinnati Bengals. You mean to tell me that you wouldn't want to watch this division when you got a young Caleb Williams who is expected to be the next coming of Patrick Mahomes? You kind of would have like the Padawan versus the Master, Caleb Williams versus Patrick Mahomes. I would love to see that. Jordan Love, you know, ascending young quarterback who already, in most people's eyes, is a top 7, top 8 quarterback in the league, going head-to-head 2 times a year against Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and then, of course, we get blessed with watching Mahomes and Burrow battle 2 times a season outside of the 1 times that they battled throughout the regular season or the playoffs. This would be one of the NFL's most watched games because I think that the Mahomes-Burrow rivalry is kind of a little bit similar to the Brady-Manning rivalry, the Brady-Peyton-Manning rivalry to be more exact. So I would love to see this new NFC East. You got Cincinnati, Kansas City, the 2 top quarterbacks in the league squaring off. Then you throw Jordan Love into the mix. And then if Caleb Williams reaches his potential, this division could have the NFL's 4 best quarterbacks in it. And Kansas City has already had so much success winning the AFC West in the past that you give them a more tougher challenge, putting them in this new realigned NFC East. So it would make things a little bit more interesting for them. The NFC North, the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, and the Indianapolis Colts are in this division. Cleveland, they have no luck winning the AFC North ever. I can't remember the last time Cleveland won the AFC North. Putting them in the NFC North gives them a little bit of a change. You know, maybe they can get things right. Detroit's now starting to have some success, but can they continue to sustain that success? We'll see. You got Indianapolis, which Indianapolis hasn't really been that big of a powerhouse ever since the earlier days of Andrew Luck and the weak AFC South. Minnesota could be interesting here because, you know, Minnesota, they had a few titles that they won here and there. But in this division, it pretty much could go either way. You pretty much could be having a battle where it comes down to Cleveland and Detroit. Cleveland is a physical football team, really good up front, really good defense. And you wonder if you can get quarterback right, but when you're in this division where you have an unproven Anthony Richardson and you don't know who the hell is going to be playing QB for Minnesota this year, this is a division that could be pretty winnable for Cleveland, depending on how well Deshaun Watson plays. And you might not even need Deshaun Watson to play at the elite level to win it. Then we got the NFC East. Now, this is where we probably are going to see the biggest changes, where people are probably going to disagree with the realignment because maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense geography-wise, but to me it does. You got the New Orleans Saints that play in Louisiana. Tennessee plays in, Nashville, which is still, in the eastern, southern part of the country. Carolina, same way. Dallas, they just have to be here just because Texas still is a little bit in the south. So you have Dallas that's still around in the same geography location. Carolina, they probably want to have a shot in hell of winning this thing, but you never know with the Tennessee Titans. They're the biggest mystery team in the league this year. They could go either way. The Dallas Cowboys, they get an easier path to the postseason. Hell, maybe they could end up getting a first-round bye. You play in the NFC East, it makes things a lot more easier for Dallas because you now get to avoid the Philadelphia Eagles, so you don't got to worry about them. But if the Saints and the Titans end up reaching their potential, then it could make things a lot tougher for Dallas. But this will make it a little bit more easier for Dallas to go a little bit further in the postseason if you were to realign the divisions this way. Because with how their current division is set up, I don't see them having too much success going far with how stacked Philadelphia is and how good of a general manager Howie Roseman is. Now, with the new NFC West, okay, you got the Houston Texans, the Arizona Cardinals, the 49ers, and the Rams. So you still have three of the same teams, but you add Houston into the mix. Houston isn't too far away from Arizona. And then the 49ers and the Rams, this is a really entertaining game that I wouldn't want to see go away because you got two of the best offensive minds of this era. And Kyle Shanahan versus Sean McVay. I would love to see this. You add Houston into the fold. Now you really make things interesting. Because, yeah, you got two of the best offensive minds and two of the best head coaches, arguably, in the game right now. But you got C.J. Stroud, who's the best quarterback of the four teams or the three other teams. Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford. So this is a division that could be really entertaining to watch. I mean, outside of Arizona, who probably wouldn't have a shot, the Texans, the 49ers, the Rams, all could be ultra competitive in this thing. And with how the NFC West has been the last couple of years, it really only comes down to two teams, the Rams or the 49ers. Now with the Houston Texans in the mix, you not just have C.J. Stroud, who right now, in my opinion, is already a top 5 quarterback, but you got one of the better defensive minds in the game in D'Amico Ryans, somebody who coached under Kyle Shanahan, knows his tendencies. So you'll have a league that's pivoting towards offensive-minded coaches, but you'll have a head coach and D'Amico Ryans that focuses on the defensive side of things, that he could be able to slow down these Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan offenses, which could help Houston potentially win this thing. So I would love to see the NFC West realigned this way. I think it would be a little bit more fascinating. And lastly, that's about it. So this is it for my NFL realignment. Let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section down below. How would you guys realign these divisions? Which ones do you agree with? Which ones do you hate? We got a few more topics to get into before we get up on out of here. The Las Vegas Raiders are the biggest losers from this offseason. The biggest need for the Raiders going in to the start of this offseason was that they needed a quarterback. And they didn't get that. You signed Gardner Minshew, but that's not saying much. Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, you arguably have one of the worst quarterback rooms in the National Football League. And with how tough your schedule is this year, you got to go against Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew aren't going to be good enough to get you wins in those games. And 4 out of 5 of Antonio Pierce's wins last year came against backup quarterbacks. And anytime they played up against a good team, they didn't have too much success. And Aiden O'Connell didn't look good. He didn't look good against Kansas City. They won that game in spite of him only completing 1 pass outside of the first quarter. That's embarrassing. You know how lucky you have to be to win a game that way? And then, defensively, yeah, you're really good. But offensively, in a quarterback-driven league, especially when you're in the conference that's home to the majority of the NFL's top quarterbacks, having mid to below average quarterback play isn't going to cut it. And then to make things a lot worse, you hire Luke Getsy to be your offensive coordinator. Luke Getsy at this point has showed that he's one of the worst OCs in the game. And he wasn't even your preferred number one option. So you didn't really upgrade when it came to your offensive coordinator position. You didn't upgrade that quarterback at all. You can think that Aiden O'Connell's going to get better, but history shows us that quarterbacks drafted outside of the first round have a low chance of being successful. And there's only been about 4 or 5 quarterbacks since 2015 that have been non-first rounders that have turned into Pro Bowl level players. I don't see that out of Aiden O'Connell. He looked good against the LA Chargers when they quit on Brandon Staley, but I promise you that shit ain't going to fly against Jim Harbaugh, and you got a good chance of going 0-2 against Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. In spite of the fact that you feel you may have a better roster than the Chargers have better coaching than you. With Aiden O'Connell having Luke Getsy being his OC, I could see his development being stunted. If he was playing under Cliff Kingsbury, then there's a little bit more reason to be optimistic about him. Gardner Minshew, he was really good because he was getting coached by Shane Steichen. You saw how Philadelphia's offense dropped off last year with Shane Steichen leaving to take Indianapolis' head coaching job. Jalen Hurts, we don't know how good he is not playing under Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen also was Justin Herbert's OC when he had his phenomenal rookie year. The Raiders, just to me, put themselves in a really bad spot by not being able to walk away with a franchise-changing quarterback and not getting a good, proven offensive coordinator. You should have went ahead and beefed up the salary for Cliff Kingsbury to make sure that you didn't lose him to Washington. That was a big mistake on your part. And then you didn't even trade up to get any of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft. Now, nobody expected for the Atlanta Falcons to do the dumb shit that they did and take Michael Penix in the top 10. But you still should have traded up into the top 5, the top 7 to make sure that you could have solidified you walking away with one of the best signal callers in this draft class. Because the only thing that's keeping the Raiders from being a playoff team is quarterback. Their offensive line isn't that good, but it's a tad bit better than what it was last year. You got a pretty decent wide receiving core. Your defense can play at a top 12 level this year. But having bad quarterback play is what's going to be the detriment to Antonio Pierce and this squad this year. Aiden O'Connell is not it. And that's the problem with a lot of NFL fans. When it comes to their quarterback situation, they keep defending mid and below average instead of going out there and trying to get great. Having great quarterback play is going to be the difference between you being a Super Bowl team and you being a team that could be competing for the title of the worst team in the league this year. That's how bad your quarterback room is. If Gardner Minshew was as good as a QB as what people think, he wouldn't be bounced around as much as a journeyman bridge stop quarterback or a journeyman backup. And Aiden O'Connell, I really don't see it with him. He had his moments against bad teams, but when he was going up against good opponents, like the Miami Dolphins, he threw 3 interceptions in that game, and he couldn't even complete a pass outside of the first quarter against Kansas City. I don't see it with the Raiders this year. I just don't. They are one of the biggest losers from this offseason. The biggest need that they had was finding themselves a quarterback. And it's just really disappointing because I like Antonio Pierce. And many people went to war for this guy getting the head coaching job. Hell, Max Crosby threatened to retire. Or not threatened to retire, but threatened to ask for a trade if Antonio Pierce didn't become the Raiders' new head coach. He gets the opportunity, and it just seems like he just kind of is playing around with it because look what he has to work with that quarterback, and he's a defensive-minded coach. If he was an offensive-minded coach, then things would be a little bit more different. But you hire Luke Getsy. Your reasoning for hiring Luke Getsy was, well, when we played against Chicago Bears and you was calling plays, the Bears were tearing us up with no Justin Fields, no starting running backs. I think that shows more about your defense than it shows Luke Getsy being a competent offensive coordinator because there are games when he called the same play 3 straight times in a row. His offense is nothing but screens, bubble screens, out routes, drags. It's no creativity to Luke Getsy's offense. The Raiders are not in a good position going into this season. They put themselves in the hole by not getting a quarterback. The good thing is that you should be bad enough this year where you should be in position to land one of the top signal callers in the 2025 NFL draft. And once you get you a proven or a good quarterback, rather that being free agency, maybe Dak Prescott hits free agency and you get him, you're a playoff team. Or if you draft Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck, that also could make you a playoff team. The Raiders are a quarterback away from making it back to the postseason. But right now, with what you have at quarterback, you don't have enough to win with how tough this conference is, home to the NFL's best quarterbacks. You need a lot more, especially when you have two of them in your same division that you see twice a year, Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. The last thing before we get up on out of here is, what 10 players have the best chance to win the Heisman Trophy this upcoming college football season? I want to give you guys my Heisman watch list. Guys need to look out for that have a great shot at walking away with the Heisman at the end of this year. We're going to start off with Carson Beck. Carson Beck, you probably could argue and say he should be a lot higher than 10, but Georgia isn't really a good school for putting up Heisman numbers if you're a quarterback because they're so balanced. They're good running the football. They're also good throwing the football as well. But if you're trying to win Heisman, you need to be able to have a little bit more volume if you're Carson Beck. And I don't think he's going to get enough volume to really finish this season in that Heisman finalist conversation. He'll finish on the outside looking in because he is arguably the best quarterback in the game. But with Carson Beck having to fight for opportunities to throw the ball and put up Heisman stats when you got Trevor Etienne who transfers in that from Florida, I just don't see him putting up enough numbers to be rated higher than what he is at number 10. Coming in for me at number 9, I have Zachariah Branch. Zachariah Branch, he's not talked about enough when it comes to potential breakout players. He has a lot of similarities to the Anthony Thomas, Tavon Austin. We didn't really get to see a lot of him outside of the first 2 games that USC played last year, but he is really dynamic. He has Olympic-like speed. They say he's faster than Tyreek Hill, some people report. He's also fantastic after the catch. He's really elusive, especially once he gets into the open field. You might as well just kiss him goodbye. Don't even try to tackle him. With how dynamic USC's offense is going to be going into the Big Ten, these Big Ten defenses are going to have to adjust to having to guard up against a guy like a Zachariah Branch because they don't see receivers as dynamic as him that often with this kind of game-changing speed and playmaking ability. Plus, he's going to be returning kicks and punt for the Trojans this year as well. Zachariah Branch definitely is one of the few wide receivers in the nation that have a good opportunity to win the Heisman Trophy this year. Quinn Ewers comes in at number 8 for me. Quinn Ewers, kind of the same thing for Carson Beck. Their offenses are so balanced when it comes to running and throwing the football that I don't know if Quinn Ewers is ever going to have a season where he goes off for, let's say, 38, 45-something passing touchdowns. I think he is going to be really good this year. I think this is the best season that we are ever going to see out of Quinn Ewers. But with how many mouths there are to feed and the way that Steve Sarkisian calls plays, I don't see Quinn Ewers getting enough volume to put up Heisman-worthy numbers. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be a good quarterback. I'm just saying that with how much talent that Texas team has, I can't rate him any higher than 8. But if they end up being a more pass-heavy team entering year 1 of the SEC, I definitely could see him rising up the ranks. But he is in at number 8 for me when it comes to my Heisman watch list. At number 7, I have Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. He ended up winning the Doak Walker Award, which is awarded to college football's most outstanding running back. And if Oklahoma State is going to have a shot at winning the Big 12 title this year, he's going to be the main catalyst for that. Alex Bowman returns at quarterback for another season. He's not that good at all. If anything, he's average to below average. Ollie Gordon is this offense. And if you're able to slow him down, then Oklahoma State doesn't have anything offensively. If Oklahoma State ends up making it to the Big 12 championship and they potentially win it and they get into the college football playoffs, you could see Ollie Gordon maybe having close to 2,000 rushing yards. He may not hit that exactly, but I could see him having 1,900 rushing yards, averaging 6-7 yards per carry with 19, 20 touchdowns. This, to me, is the best running back in America. And he's the only running back that I have on this list. This dude is a monster, really good vision, great contact balance. He's just a do-it-all running back. I would love to have him on my team, and I'm pretty sure you would too, unless you're a Ohio State fan and you just hoard all the good running backs. At number 6, I got Tennessee signal caller Nico Imaviava. If you're somebody who's not really familiar with SEC football, you're probably going to be asking, who the hell is this dude? Well, he was one of the more highly sought after quarterbacks coming out of his recruiting class. Tennessee was flying him out on recruiting visits in a private jet. And anytime you're getting recruiting visits on a private jet, you're legit. And he had a really good showing in his debut as the starter against Iowa in their bowl game. To me, he's a more athletic Trevor Lawrence. He's also a little bit more physical than what Trevor Lawrence is. He has a really good arm. Tennessee has a really good supporting cast around him. And you should see Tennessee's offense explode this year and look more similar to what they did back in 2022 with Hendon Hooker at the helm than what they did under Joe Milton. Joe Milton wasn't bad, but he wasn't that great. Plus, Tennessee dealt with some injuries at wide receiver. Brew McCoy got injured. Deontay Thornton got injured. You bring back everybody fully healthy. You got more depth at receiver too. Tennessee is an air raid style team. They like to throw the football a lot. Nico Imaviava definitely is going to have the kind of volume that you need to be able to win the Heisman. And if he ends up being as good as expected, I can see him throwing for 40 touchdowns. He'll probably have 6 or 7 on the ground as well. He could really go off this year. And if that does happen and Tennessee gets into the college football playoffs, definitely expect him to be a finalist. Number 5, I got Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe, he got better every single game, it seemed like, after he got benched. He made gradual improvements as a passer. We already know he's one of the best, if not the best, dual threat quarterback in the nation. When this dude chooses to tuck and run with the ball, it's poetry in motion, it seems like. You get a better offensive mind at the helm, and Kalen DeBoer being your head coach. Last year, you played under Nick Saban. We know Nick Saban's the GOAT, but Tommy Rees was your offensive coordinator. Tommy Rees severely limited Jalen Milroe's production in a sense, just because I don't think Tommy Rees really knew how to use this dude. Kalen DeBoer, what his offense is based on is throwing the football downfield outside the numbers, which is something that Jalen Milroe does better than arguably any other quarterback in the country. He has the best deep ball out of any quarterback. He throws a deep ball, but then he throws short and intermediate passes, which is really weird. Under Kellen DeBoer, Jalen Milroe really could pop off this year. He comes in at number 5 for me. Number 4, I got Cam Ward with Miami. He transfers from Washington State down to South Florida. Miami, I expect them to win the ACC this year. And when that happens, this is going to be the best season that Miami has had in damn near 2 decades. And with that happening, they're going to be one of the biggest stories in college football. And the main reason for that success is going to hinge on the arm of Cam Ward. Cam Ward, this is the best, most talented team that he's ever played with. Great receivers, great offensive line. You're going to have a great running back. Shannon Dawson is one of the better offensive coordinators in the nation. If Miami is going to be good this year, and Miami really is back, it's going to be because of Cam Ward. He was the best quarterback in the transfer portal. He initially decided to declare for the draft, but Mario Cristobal flipped him from the draft to the Canes. Cam Ward, I expect him to put up Heisman numbers. The volume's going to be there. Miami definitely is going to be airing the football out a lot. Plus, he has some underrated athleticism in his game. Also, look out for Cam Ward this season. At number 3, I have Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is the best player in the nation. He plays wide receiver, cornerback. He's great at getting open. really good route runner, creates great separation. He's also the best cornerback in college football. How often do you find somebody this good? Arguably top 5 at wide receiver in the nation, and then undebatably the best cornerback in the nation. If Colorado ends up winning the Big 12 this year, it's going to be mostly due to Travis Hunter. Anytime you watch Colorado play last year, back early last year when they had their little bit of success and they started out 3-0, Travis Hunter was just making plays all the way around. That receiver seemed like he was getting open damn near every play. At cornerback, you didn't even want to throw his way. He made a lot of crazy interceptions that went viral. Travis Hunter, being the best player in college football, you got to have him on this list. At number 2, I got Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Ole Miss is stacked this year. Great offensive line. They're good at running back. They are incredibly deep at wide receiver. You got Lane Kiffin dialing up the plays for you. Lane Kiffin is one of the best offensive minds in the sport right now. Jackson Dart has gotten better every single season. This is the year where he really could just explode. And Ole Miss is expected to make it to the college football playoffs this year. But they also have a very good chance of being able to win the SEC this year due to how favorable their schedule is. All right, you get to avoid some of the best teams in this conference. You probably got the easiest schedule out of any team going into the SEC this year. So Jackson Dart should be able to put up some Heisman numbers, but he also is going to have some games where he's going to have the opportunity, such as when Ole Miss plays Georgia, to show everybody that, hey, I can play Heisman caliber football against some of the best teams in the nation. So Jackson Dart comes in at number 2 for me. At number 1, I know you guys are about to get upset with this one. I'm sorry, but I got Shedeur Sanders. I don't see how Shedeur Sanders doesn't end up winning the Heisman this year. The Heisman is about putting up great numbers. Okay, it's a popularity contest. Let's just be honest about it. And Shedeur Sanders is probably the most popular quarterback in college football right now. Colorado, they are going to run the football a lot more than what they did last year, but this team is going to win or lose based on how well Shedeur Sanders plays. And last year, if it wasn't for Shedeur Sanders, Colorado wouldn't have won any game last year. You saw how different this team looked when he was on the field versus when he was off it due to injuries. They got blown the hell out by Washington State, and they couldn't even move the ball that effectively against Utah, which their quarterback situation was less than ideal also. With the receiving core that Shedeur Sanders is going to be throwing to, Travis Hunter, LaJohntay Western, you got a really good transfer from Vandy coming in there. You are 4 or 5 guys deep at wide receiver. Deion went all in on improving the offensive line this year. Is this going to be one of the best offensive lines in college football? No, it's not, but it's definitely going to be way better than allowing 50 damn sacks that Shedeur Sanders sustained last year. Shedeur Sanders has a great roster around him, and he's going to have the opportunity to put up a lot of stats with how frequently Colorado opts to throw the football this year. So this is my Heisman watch list, my list of guys to watch for the Heisman Trophy preseason edition. I plan on updating this every week throughout the college football season this year, but this is just my preseason list. Live your list of players who you feel you have your eyes on, who could potentially win the Heisman Trophy this year. And this is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on X, give us a like, retweet the stream, follow us, like on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications. Remember that you can find the audio version of this episode in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you get your episodes from, the JT Sports Podcast is available. Follow us on our social media pages, on Instagram at JT Sports _, on X at JT Sports __. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to M Sparks. Shout out to Kate Roan.